there's a difference, and I know you know what it is. I mean, there's a difference of how ladies approach the sport, and how they deal with each other in the sport. There's a competition there. Certainly, it's really strong, but the camaraderie is what draws me to the ladies, I think, more than anything else.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Master Captain Angie Scott.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast. We just wrapped up the LBAA 2023 season. And as you've heard on the show, we've got some changes. And one of the changes is our longtime announcer, our voice of the LBAA, has decided to retire. And hopefully we'll continue to see him some down the road. But it got me thinking, I'm like, you know what? He'd be an excellent person to have on the show because he's been a supporter of women in fishing for a long, long time, and he's been in the industry for a long time, and I'm sure he's got some amazing stories to tell. So welcome to the podcast, legendary MC, radio host, Don Day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Angie. Good talking to you. I'm looking forward to the next year watching, kind of keeping track of the LBAA and see what they do and what you do in your future as well.
Yeah, so I want to talk about your, connection and everything that you've done over the years to help support women in fishing. But before we get into that, if you wouldn't mind, just give our audience a little background on yourself and how your career got started in the world of bass.
Okay, be glad to. I was born and raised in South Georgia, down in Bainbridge, Georgia. Matter of fact, you're familiar with Bainbridge, the same hometown that Pam Martin Wells is from. But I'm a bit older than she is. I started my hunting and fishing years down there in Bainbridge on the banks of the Flint River and the shores of Lake Seminole and all those beautiful woods down there. They're shooting quail and dove and rabbits and turkeys and whatever else, and also fishing, lots of fishing. I was in a real hotbed of fishing activity. So I learned early on to bass fish, lots of fishing time with my dad when he and I would go, and I was sitting in the back of the boat brim fishing. And anyway, those days are fresh in my memory, even at this age now. And I moved on and kept doing it, even through the military. I went in the Navy in 67 when I graduated high school, and spent 4 years in the Navy, and toured Vietnam in 69, and got out in 71, kept fishing and hunting, and got the broadcasting business. And so I've stayed in broadcasting pretty much all my life. That's all I've done for the most part, TV and radio, and had a chance to work with B.A.S.S. In 1980, I met Ray Scott, the founder of B.A.S.S. We became friends, and I worked for him actually for a while, years and years ago. And I left the radio business, but I came back. Anyway, my relationship with B.A.S.S. started back then, and Ray and I stayed in touch over the years. And he would call me every once in a while, just shoot the breeze. We'd talk for an hour or two. And one day he called me, he says, hey, this was 2004 now, 2004. He said, hey, Don Day, this is Ray Scott. It's like early Saturday morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Hey, Don Day, this is Ray Scott. I'm going to Iraq. You want to go? I said, sure, let's go. Well, he put together a trip to Iraq in Thanksgiving 2004. I was one of 6 people on the trip, and we went over. Ray wanted to say thanks. Is the reason for the trip. He wanted to say thanks to the men and women in uniform and see them face to face. And so we did. We shipped over boxes and boxes of lures and line and reels and books and everything. And we went over and we hit, in the course of 7 days in Iraq, we hit 14 what they call FOBs, or forward operating bases. And we would do a show, and Ray would tell stories, and we'd give away stuff and have fun, and we'd laugh, and then we'd spend some quality time one-on-one, and there was lots of tears and lots of handshakes, and it was the most probably one of the most emotional times in my life to spend time with the troops over there. It just and you know, all the years I knew Ray, I never had seen him cry until we finished that tour, and I saw him shedding tears just thinking about what we had done. But pretty amazing. Anyway, I tried to make that story as short as possible. There's so much involved in it.
I'm sure that's a pretty incredible experience, though, and
really amazing. Yeah.
And, you know, just kind of thinking about back on your career experiences like that, you've probably had so many other experiences that, you know, that's one of the things being in the outdoors industry that you might not make the most money, but you get paid in those experiences.
Well, don't you, though? That's well said, too, Angie. I'm glad you said that. I look back on my career with B.A.S.S, for example, and all the wonderful times I had with them. We first started the pre-show stuff at the Classics back in the 80s, and I was tapped to do that, and I would wear a tuxedo, and they would bring me down out of the ceiling with a tuxedo on, or zip me in on the zip line, or come in on a spaceship or whatever. We did those things over and over again. And then luckily in 14 years ago, I guess it was, B.A.S.S had a women's tour, the WBT, the Women's B.A.S.S tour. And I was called about doing the MC on that final, as it turned out to be the final year. So that's when I met Cheryl and Secret and many other anglers. I MC'd that last year of the WBT, and then they folded. And I was talking to Cheryl, I think, later, Cheryl or Secret, one of them, I said, do y'all need an MC? Because they've been talking about putting together the LBAA. And I said, do you need an MC? And they said, yeah, but we can hardly afford you. And I said, don't worry about that. I just want to be involved. And so I did. And then the career with the LBAA started. And I did every one of the years of those except one. I bailed out one year, and then I talked into coming back. So I'm glad I did. I've had a chance to meet so many wonderful anglers, men and women, and especially with the ladies. Angie, I watched your career from a couple of years ago when I met you, I guess, in 2020. I think it was your first year with the LBAA.
Yeah, I only fished the Truman Lake tournament that year just to kind of see what it was all about. So that was quite an interesting tournament, weather-wise.
Yeah, well, I know it was tough weather-wise, and you had a struggle trying to find some fish as well. And but it happens, happens to the best. We just saw, you mentioned the wrap-up of this year's LBAA championship when on the final day, the GOAT, greatest of all time, didn't weigh a fish. Pam Martin Wells. That's how it goes. I mean, we all know that even the best can have really bad days. And I've watched your career grow, and I've watched you change your boat, and I've watched how closely you and Dana work, and how she is so involved in the life that y'all lead and involved in your career. And it's just I watched all of the interworkings and the minutia, I guess, and if you could use that word, about the industry, not just going out there and catching fish, but the backstories. I love to hear about, how many dogs you got and all the little things that create an angler.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that makes, watching you on stage, talking to all the ladies, I think so special, because you take the time to talk to us off the stage and, just check in what's going on, and get updates and things like that. And that really means a lot to all of us. And we're sure going to miss that. Hopefully whoever is taking over in 2024 kind of maybe has a little bit of the same mentality. We'll see. Would you like fishing and hunting information and tips from experienced outdoors women? Want to learn more about outdoor gear that works for you? Want inspiration and try to find something new in the outdoors? Then subscribe to Adventurous, the only women's hunting and fishing magazine. Adventurous is a high-quality print magazine you'll be sure to love, and it makes a great gift for other outdoors women and youth. Subscribe at adventurousmagazine.com. But I want to go back to those early days, even the final year of the WBT, because I'm newer to all this, just having my first experience the end of 2020. And, learning, I didn't even know you were the voice behind the Bassmaster Classic until the next time I went, and I was like, hey, I know that voice. So, but I want to go back to those early days because I love hearing about the history of women in bass fishing. And I've interviewed a few ladies that fished back in the day, over the years. And, it always is just so awe-inspiring to me to hear their stories, because a lot of this was before all the fancy electronics and, they're using paper maps to navigate and learn the lakes and things like that. And it just blows my mind. Do you have any like special stories that kind of stand out from those earlier years, or any, anglers that maybe aren't around anymore?
Yeah, I look and follow careers like Hank Parker and people like that on the male side, but on the ladies, Jimmy Houston's wife was an early pioneer. Roland Martin's wife was an early pioneer. We had some great anglers from the South, lady anglers that came along. Burma Thomas, I don't know if you ever heard the name or not. She's passed away now. She was from Alabama. Burma lived up around Birmingham area, I think, and she was one of the early lady pioneers. And Burma and I got to be buddies, and every time I was on the radio, did a morning show in Montgomery, and every time she would get anywhere near, she would call me, and I'd put her on the air. I put her on the air quite a few times. We'd talk fishing and talk just everything. But as I look back on ladies like that had such an impact on the careers of anglers like yourself now. And it rolls I don't know, like a snowball heading downhill or something. It just gathers, it gathers steam and it gathers life. And people that come before, like Pam Martin Wells now she's getting toward the end of her career. And I know she didn't want to have to face that, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And so people like you that are coming along that are just hanging on every word that people like Pam Martin Wells says, because she's the GOAT, and you want to say, well, I learned from her, and I picked up this tip from her, and so that kind of relationship is what is also one of the great things that I love about the business. More so on the women's side than the men's side. I've been to MC 1,000 men's tournaments or men only tournaments, and I've only been doing the ladies tournaments now since the last 13, 14 years. But there's a difference. Angie, and I know you know what it is. I mean, there's a difference of how ladies approach the sport, and how they deal with each other in the sport. There's a competition there. Certainly, it's really strong, but the camaraderie is what draws me to the ladies, I think, more than anything else. There's a sisterhood, and I've used that term a lot. I really think it's there. I know how much y'all like each other. Mm-hmm. And that to me is part of the lure of the business. And it could be in any sport, really, but bass fishing just kind of it lends itself to that style, that way of being in life and living life. But sharing knowledge, sharing information, sharing love, sharing friendship, but also being competitive. It's a balancing act that y'all do very, very well.
One thing too, thinking back on that Truman Lake tournament, for example, that we were talking about with the horrible weather, that was one thing that really, really impressed me about these ladies. Like, I wimped out. I'm like, I'm not going back out there. That's not happening. I sat in the restaurant, enjoyed some coffee. I think you might have been hanging out there, and but I'm like, holy cow, these ladies are like the real deal. I mean, I don't know that many guys would be out there in those conditions.
I'm glad you said that, because I said the same thing, that same thing you're talking about. I was thinking to myself, why in the world would anybody go out in this stuff? I don't know. Most of the guys would not. I'm telling you now, they would not. It was folks, if you weren't there, it was the word. We had everything. We had blowing rain and ice and sleet and snow, and it was freezing cold. It was the worst kind of weather you can even imagine. It was terrible.
Yeah.
But they toughed it out. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. A lot of them did anyway. But
Yeah.
like you, I'd rather kind of sit those days out.
Especially when you're not catching fish anyway.
Exactly, exactly. And I remember too. Also, speaking of you, and I'm trying to turn this back around on you because I saw what you started in the boat you started with, and you realized it was not the boat for this kind of tour, and you made a change, and
Mm-hmm.
the boat you're running now seems to be perfect for your style of fishing and
Yeah.
for the fishing that most of the ladies do.
Yeah, the Crestliner, nothing against the Key West. I loved driving
Oh, I
it.
know.
Some of
Yeah,
those
great boat.
tournaments, I actually was, had a bit of an advantage when there was going to be some tough, rough water out there,
Right.
like Ray Hubbard, and my
Yeah.
boat could have handled that. But that all that said, there were some disadvantages, and fortunately, we have a good relationship with Brunswick Corporation through my work with Freedom Boat Club, and of course they own Crestliner, Mercury, and Lowrance, and all that just ended up coming together, and I'm so thankful, and it's been just amazing running that Crestliner MX-19. We're going to continue it for next season, and hoping to make a few small upgrades. One thing I did miss on the Key West is I had the Garmin Live Scope, and so we're hoping to add the Lowrance Active Target for next season. So hopefully that will work out, and just a couple other minor tweaks, but I think having the right tool for the job, I had a better season this year, so I think those kind of go hand in hand. So super, super excited to be running that again in the 2024 season.
Well, I'm going to be keeping track, by the way. I'm going to keep up with you. I've got you guys on my radar, so I'm going to be checking in occasionally and seeing how you're all doing. And if I have an opportunity to get drop by one of your tournaments, I'm going to drop by and just see if I can work my way back up on stage again just for the old times.
Oh, we'd love it. That would be so exciting. Well, I had Terry Sindrick on last week's episode, and one thing that she really talked about was what you said about the sisterhood and the camaraderie, and she's kind of on the fence about coming back next year just for the simple fact of cost and time, and it's hard when all your vacation time is used towards fishing, and then your family doesn't get to enjoy the same time. And so I have a feeling she's going to come back. I don't think she can stay away, but we'll see.
She has been a joy to work with on stage. I've often said every time I stick a microphone in her face, I never know what I'm going to get from her.
That is true.
She's quite an angler. She's really proven herself being a good stick out there on the water. And she's a lot of people don't know how tender-hearted she is.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, we could go into stories about that, but I won't. But I know how much of a heart she has. She's an amazing, amazing lady on and off the water as well.
Absolutely. Going back to Truman again, I had her day one where the conditions weren't as bad. But she's a big reason why even though I had a horrible experience day two, she's a big reason why I came back the next year. So, hats off to Terry. But one of the things she talked about, and I just want to touch on this with you a little bit before we wrap up here, but one of the things she talked about is, the LBAA Women's Pro Bass Tour. Yeah, that's the tagline, but you don't have to be a professional angler to join us. I mean,
good point. Good point. It's always been that way since it's a pro-am basically, right? I mean, you've got a bunch of ladies that decide, I've never done that. Let me give it a try. Mm-hmm. And they go in to get in the back of the boat with people like you or Terry, whoever. And the learning experience starts immediately. Mm-hmm. Not only how to fish, but how to handle a boat and what to do. It's just amazing. I hear so many stories over the years. I've heard them all from co-anglers saying, man, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I love this.
Yeah, and you've even got ladies that are co-anglers that could very well be boaters.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Evil Hawk and people like that are that are so good from the back of the boat? Yeah, consistently good. A lot of Texas anglers are that way too. They've honed their skills on the Texas waters out there, and anyway, they're all good. So amazing.
Yeah, so anyone listening to this podcast, that if you've ever even wanted to know what it's like, you want to give it a try, just one tournament. I know Travis, who's going to be kind of leading things for us going forward, has said he'll even pay an entry fee for somebody out of his own pocket just to get him out there to try it one time.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm impressed with the new people, Angie. I know you are as well. I really think they're going to take some good positive directions for the group and try their level best. They are determined to grow the trail and grow the sport. So good on them.
Yep. Well, we're excited to see what the future is going to bring for sure. I hope it grows. It deserves to. All the blood, sweat, and tears that Cheryl and Secret have put into it over the past 13 years deserves to see something flourish.
Absolutely. And by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't say congratulations. I've done it on stage, but I want to do it on your podcast. I want to congratulate you on this marvelous vehicle that you've chosen to drive here, this podcast about servicing the outdoors and shining a spotlight on people, mostly ladies, who are involved in the outdoors. Thank you for letting this old guy here get in on the act. I appreciate the opportunity to get on with you. This podcast.
Well, thank you so much, and it's an absolute honor to have you on the show and showcase your illustrious career in the industry and with the ladies. And what's the future hold for Don Day?
You know, I've often said my job every day is to stay out of everybody else's way, and so I'm trying to do that. I'm a wannabe woodworker. I really, really, really am bad at it. But I like to get in my shop and fiddle with wood. I've made a few things that I don't know that I want to show to anybody else, but I keep trying because I just enjoy it with my hands on wood. I've got a little patch of land here behind me. I like watching the deer and the turkeys out behind the house here. And I ride my motorcycle a lot. I ride with the Patriot Guard, going to the funerals of fallen military personnel and first responders, and that means a lot to me. It's really personal for me to do that. And as a matter of fact, I just finished one yesterday. Just did one for a 90-year-old vet, World War II vet. And anyway, so it's been a good life, and I'm going to continue living it as hard as I can.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, we will continue to stay in touch. Sincerely hope we get to see you again at one of the future tournaments. And just thanks again for taking some time to be on the show. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot. Good luck to you.
Thank you.